Oh, welcome all to the SnailTrail4x4 podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping in Toyotas, and maybe even poking a little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, hearing about how awesome it is to have a two-link system in a Toyota suspension system, then this is the podcast for you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyler, Two-Link Tyler, and joining me again for another episode of the SnailTrail4x4 podcast is... my steering goes, wee, Jimmy. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm good. I'm doing, you got me on that one. Guilty as charged.
Winning.
Yeah, whining.
Whining, that's what it was, sorry. How you doing, man?
Things are great.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a good 4th of July.
Yeah.
Got to spend it with some friends. That was a lot of fun. You'll probably hear about that or maybe on Thursday.
You are?
Flying to Hawaii.
Hawaii.
The Big Island.
Nice.
Yeah, we're going on a family trip.
Mm-hmm.
My parents and my family.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So your brother's not going?
Brother's not going.
Okay.
They supposedly the family's too big to go travel all together now.
Oh. Okay.
So,
Could they travel separately then? Or?
I mean, I don't know. So
okay.
But way back in the day, my parents used to take my brother on trips. Like we used to do a family trip. We would pay for travel and my parents would more or less pay for housing and food.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And we would go all over the place.
Yeah.
Like I went to Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so lately my parents have been taking my brother's family on trips.
Okay.
And they've been doing it for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of was like, why are they're either taking my brother's family or my nephew on a trip somewhere.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, what about
share the love?
What about our family?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
They don't like you guys anymore.
And well, they said, yeah, that could be. My mom said that, well, we paid for a lot of Antarctica trip and that was a big trip. So we kind of feel like bad about just giving you that trip and we're making it up to your brother. And I said, well, where's the break even point here?
Yeah.
Because if it's a monetary thing, I bet you've already surpassed it.
Yeah.
And then like a month later, they're like, hey, you guys want to go on a trip to Hawaii?
Perfect.
Yeah. I was like, yes, we would love to go on a trip to Hawaii.
Nice.
Because I did have to remind my parents that I paid for the flights.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cruise ship was sort of an all-inclusive. They counted that as housing and I didn't need to pay for food because it's included. Yeah. So the total bill, that trip costs like $14,000.
Wow. For the 5 of you? 4?
No, per person.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
It was over 10 grand per person.
What?
And it was a month-long cruise practically.
God, that's true. It's a month.
And it was the super duper uber fancy cruise line.
God.
Like higher,
Wow.
better than Princess, obviously better than Carnival, better than Viking. It was like the top of the line cruise line.
Wow.
And they got all the permits and everything to put people on the shore of Antarctica.
Okay.
So I think it was like around a $10,000 cruise and it was like a $3,000 or $4,000 plane flights or something like that, which I paid for that portion.
Yeah.
And then the Bank of Black paid for the rest.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Anyways, enough about family. I'm currently by the time this podcast comes out, I am still in bed, but we will be getting up shortly to catch our very early, I think our departure of 7 a.m. flight to the Big Island of Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. We're going to be there for 7 days. We're leaving Monday, coming home Monday. We're going to be most of our time in Kona, and we're going to go over to the Hilo side and check out the volcanoes for one day.
Mm-hmm.
Then kind of come back and relax on a beach and drink some Kona beer and have some shaved ice or something.
Nice.
I don't know. Do some snorkeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be a good little getaway. So I won't be here for Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to pre-record snail mail.
Yep.
Try to catch up.
Yep.
And we'll figure out what to do with Monday.
Yeah. Sweet.
Tyler has some tricks
some
up his sleeve. So yeah,
I have some
figure
tricks, trixies. Well, cool. Let's jump into this episode. because we have a lot to go through.
Okay.
We have a wiener to announce.
Yes.
And other things. So my part of Rubithon.
Yeah.
Which
your half.
there was quite a bit happened. So
I'm sure there was.
So let's jump on in. We got remember we have reviews going on. Review giveaways. So our next review giveaway coming up is at 800 reviews. That'll be an Onyx Elite membership for Onyx off-road mapping software for our mobile computer devices, whatever you want. And we'll have that coming up. So we do not have another grand prize yet. We're kind of waiting until we get a winner for the tires solidified. You guys have until August 19 for the 3 potential winners to get a hold of us. So it's A13X Mont was the top winner. We're still waiting for him to get a hold of us. And then we have Cam B was the next one, number 2.
Number 2, and they have got
a hold of us.
Have got in contact with us, yeah.
And then, Boo Collector was number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So Boo Collector we have not heard from yet either.
Correct.
So, Boo Collector, if you're out there, get in touch with us because there's a potential possibility that Cam B may not be correct. That may not be the real Cam B. They may not be able to prove it for whatever reason, and you might win. So all 3 of you guys, if you guys are out there, or gals, whoever you are, get in touch with us so that we can figure out how to get a set of tires over to you. And then in the meantime, go leave reviews. So any review that is left over on Apple Podcasts will be eligible for future giveaways. So,
yep, absolutely. Yep. Go put that review in now, and hopefully you have a chance to win an Onyx Elite membership once we hit 800.
Yep. Let's see what else we got. We got a winner.
We do have a winner
for June.
Yes, we do. The party pack.
The Snail Trail Party Pack. It's very apt, I think.
By the name, it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, random number generator generated number 72.
72, yep. And that number 72 in the list of people signed up for the monthly giveaway ended up being none other than Sherpa Drinks.
Sherpa Drinks, you won a party pack from SnailTrail4x4.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for him to get in contact with us. Did you send a text to him already?
I texted him and said, congrats with a bunch of exclamation points. That's all I'm going to say.
Perfect.
And then even if he replies back with what the hell just happened, I'm going to no reply whatsoever. I'm going to ghost him. I'm going to wait for you to listen to this episode, Sherpa, to then get in contact with us.
Yep. So, and then we'll figure out what you might want out of this party pack, this variety pack. You can choose. We can, we'll work with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now concerned that I gave the option to maybe do some custom matching.
You're going to regret that one.
Yes, I know.
I will say, though, this is great for Sherpa because he mainly lives in Florida. He's a Floridian, and there's nothing to do really in Florida. So, except play tennis, apparently.
Yeah.
So this will be great because now he'll have more supplies for drinking or charcuterie boards.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see him hosting.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Sherpa Drinks.
Yep.
Is this the first time he's won something?
I feel like he's won something like way back. Like
maybe
when like in our first year of podcasting, maybe. But
yeah, I don't remember.
The main thing is that he keeps getting his candy stolen.
That's true.
I kind of feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, not really.
Yeah. Well, no candy in this last box, so you didn't really miss out.
Yeah. So that's our winner for June. Sherpa, get in touch with us and we'll give you the menu of what you get to choose from. But you get $200 to go shopping for party pack stuff, the laser engraved items from SnailTrail4x4. So let's see. What else do we got going on?
Well, we have birthdays.
Oh, that's right.
Along with our giveaway. And I know, because I just did the numbers and everything, we didn't have any FNGs this month. No. So we're looking for, July birthdays.
July.
This month.
Okay, come on. All right. July birthdays. We got no 1 year.
No 1 years.
None.
Wow.
We have a couple 2 years.
All right.
Jason Golden.
Mr. Golden. Thank you very much.
There's too many Jasons in this world. Can you guys stop populating, please?
Yeah, just change your names to James.
Thank you. And Max Kraus.
Oh, Maximus.
Yep.
Thank
we
you.
didn't think actually
2 years.
existed for a while.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if he's existing.
Really?
Though on Instagram, he did send me a picture of Mike and said Mike is still alive.
Perfect.
Yeah. He said every once in a while we try to drop aspirin into his drink because we're concerned he's going to have a heart attack because he's so high strung.
Yes, I could see that.
I was like, good.
Perfect.
Smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe one day we'll get to wheel with Max. That'd be a lot of fun. I want to see his rig.
He's been down at Hammers, I think 2 years in a row now. I've ran into him at Hammers.
No, you've never said hi to me.
Oh, man.
Jerk.
He's avoiding you.
Yeah.
Or he's a figment of my imagination. One or the other.
Both.
My imagination is
the figment of your imagination is avoiding me.
Yes. All right. So
3 years?
3 years. We have one.
All right.
Green Thumb Irrigation LLC.
Yeah, there's your money well spent in your advertising.
Yeah, advertising dollars going to good work there for Ryan Gorsuch.
Yeah. Where's he? I wonder where he's out of.
I don't know.
We could find out in the PayPal maybe, but
yeah.
If you're in the corporate address. If you're in the Gorsuch area, look up Green Thumb Irrigation.
There you go.
Hey, Ryan, if you're in our neighborhood, hit me up because I might be interested in actually getting some irrigation. Seriously. Dead serious.
Perfect. All right, there you go. 4 years.
Okay.
Ben Hayward.
Oh, Mr. Hayward.
I'm glad that the Moreflate payroll is going to good work here.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks, neighbor.
Our shipping manager over at Moreflate. He does awesome stuff.
He was a paid subscriber before he was employed by Moreflate.
He technically was. Yeah. And he just sold his Ranger, by the way.
Know.
So he's not a Ranger owner. So Matt Dresselhouse, you don't have any Ranger friends anymore. Just FYI.
You're not going to talk about what he purchased?
No, we don't need to go that far.
All right, good.
He got an exploder.
A furred exploder.
Furred exploder. We'll see how long that lasts.
Until it explodes.
Yeah, right. No 5 years.
No 5 years. Okay, good. I don't have to send anything out.
Correct. And 1 6 year.
Woo, 6 years.
Petty.
Petty?
P.
Eddie?
P. Eddie. Patrick Eddie.
111.
Patrick Eddie, Petty 11111.
Sweet.
He won, I think, was our first giveaway, second giveaway.
I don't remember.
On the reviews, something like that.
Yeah, but what I do remember is his email, obviously, because yeah. Well, Patrick, Eddie, thank you very much. Thanks for being a subscriber for so long. 6 years. Wow. Thank you. That's awesome.
Really cool. It's just amazes me that you guys have stuck around 6 years. These people coming up for 6 year anniversaries.
Let's just be honest.
Just crazy.
They've forgotten. They no longer listen to the podcast, and they've forgotten that they have a subscription.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the only reason that's like viable.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I would have stopped supporting the podcast like after year 2. So I don't know. You guys are crazy. All right, so that's birthdays. We got no FNGs. We have our winner for June. Anything else to get to?
The only other item, which isn't even that important because it's not a lot of information. Is we haven't solidified the giveaway for this month because we're time traveling and we're recording on the same day that we recorded Thursdays, and we didn't know what it was then, and we still don't know what it is now. Yeah. But maybe by now we might.
Perfect. Did you all carry along or follow along with that? I think I did. So I'm just going to say, I agree. Listen to Jimmy.
I'm smiling.
Smart feller.
Smile and nod.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Did this thing go back up to fucking 80 degrees?
It did. Our air conditioner is messing with us.
There.
All right.
See what it does now. All right. Let's see. I think that does it then, right?
Yeah.
That's all of our updates for housekeeping things.
I believe so.
Sweet.
I mean, you've got a hell of a story ahead of you. So
yeah,
I say we jump on over to the main topic.
Sounds good. Then we'll hear from Brian over at 4-Wheel Underground, who I'm getting some parts from. You'll find out why soon. And we'll be right on back with kind of my shenanigans from the weekend out at Rubithon.
At 4-Wheel Underground, we have something for everyone's 79 through 04 Toyota vehicle. Whether you've got a Chevy Dana 60, 05 and up Super Duty, fabricated, FJ80, or mini truck axles, we got you covered. 3-link, 4-link, parallel, and triangulated suspension kits, we've got you covered. underbed coilover mounts, through bed coilover mounts, trailing arms, cantilevers, custom tuned coilovers, and air bumps. We've got you covered. Frame stiffeners, subframes, skid plates, shock towers, and more to come. Make sure to use coupon code SnailTrail at fourwheelunderground.com because we've got you covered.
Welcome back, ladies and germs. All you germaphobe people out there. If somebody's a germaphobe, would that mean that they're afraid of themselves?
Could be.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a word for that.
Yeah. It's got to be a thing, right? Afraid of yourself due to germs on yourself that you can't think that you can ever get rid of.
You just scared half of our audience away, probably.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
All two of you.
Sweet, we're down to one person now.
Yep.
Anyway, so we had a busy week last week. I went out on an adopted trail meeting with the county for the Rubicon Trail. Since that is getting relaunched, pretty freaking awesome of the county to get back things together and relaunch the adopted trail program out there. It is very important. We'll talk about that on Thursday this week. Jimmy went and did the Granite View Loop on the Rubicon with some friends from Moab. Well, I mean, your friends that he typically meets in Moab, but they're from all over the place.
Yeah.
Including California, which is funny that you have to go to Moab to meet with your California friends.
I know, right?
Just like to put that out there.
More or less my neighbor.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyways, we heard about that on last Thursday's episode. So this today is kind of the shenanigans of, what my group went through out on the Rubicon for the Toyota Land Cruiser Association's Rubithon event.
Yeah, you were out on the Toyota, or you were on the mini truck and Forerunner run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the Land Cruiser event.
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of fun because that run has only been 4 or 5 years old now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the runs there are kind of centered around Land Cruisers, right? FJ40s, a wagon run, Breakfast Club. It's all based around Land Cruisers, right? Mm-hmm. Now Toyotas have always been welcome. Jeeps are always welcome. You get laughed at a little bit, but you're welcome. But they've never had like a run centered around anything other than Land Cruisers.
Correct.
The Toyota mini truck run was started by Scott Wilson and Steve Sasaki over at Power Tank. And it's kind of evolved into this really fun run. And it's one of the more advanced runs because we go from Loon Lake to the Springs in one day. I think every other run at Cruise Moab takes multiple days to get to the Springs.
Okay.
Unless you have a Renegade run.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have your vehicle built in order to make the pace of getting from Loon to the Springs.
Good job.
So that's kind of the gist of it. You got to be able to make it, from the Loon to the Springs, and be able to do that without causing a lot of problems, without breaking stuff. And it's a lot of fun. That's what we do. But the cool thing about that run is that we get on Thursday, and then we have a day on Friday to just sit around and do nothing. Whatever we want to do. And then a day Saturday to either do nothing or take part in some Rubithon stuff activities, with the raffle and dinner culminating Saturday night. And then everybody packs up and gets the hell out of Dodge Sunday morning. So leading up to Rubithon, I had a couple things I needed to get done on the rig.
Yes.
I mainly really but I really wanted to change the output seal, the rear output seal.
Okay.
On my transfer case.
Yes. So
I did that.
Good job.
I did that.
It's not that difficult.
Not that difficult. It took me about 20 minutes, maybe 15. And then let's see. So I did that. I wanted to put gussets on my sliders.
Yes.
Didn't get to do that.
Okay.
Didn't get around it. But I did change my oil. I realized I was like, I can't remember the last time I changed my oil. I think it's been like 3, maybe even 4 years.
Oh yeah.
So I changed the oil in the engine. And while I did that, I changed the oil pressure sensor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. still reads the same pressure.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Where is that sensor?
It's right next to the oil filter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I had to finagle the wiring a little bit because the 3.0 pressure sensor, the 3.4 pressure sensor has a wire coming out of it. The 3.0 pressure sensor, I believe, has a plug into it. So I had to modify the plug on the new sensor in order to run and connect to the wire for the wire harness.
Got it.
Engine harness.
So you just reminded me of something I want to update real quick.
Okay.
Remember a while ago now, I've been having starter issues.
Yeah, the intermittent, and we thought it was just kind of a bad ground connection.
Yeah, bad battery, bad ground, bad something power-wise.
Yeah.
So a while, I don't know, when I was starting to work on the power steering for Bobcat, husband came over, we were going to start ripping everything out, and Bobcat was outside. So I was like, let me drive Bobcat onto the pad and we can start ripping it apart. Bobcat wouldn't start. Like, there's no reason Bobcat shouldn't start.
Yeah.
So we went and grabbed a multimeter. We put it on the battery. It was reading fine voltage. I cranked it. It was still reading okay voltage. Then what we did was husband disconnected the sending unit to the starter and plugged in the power to that and then grounded it out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I cranked it, it was getting almost no signal.
Huh.
Very, very minute, like or what do you call it? Like very low voltage.
Okay.
Right. And I was like, okay, something's up with that. That's a big issue.
Yeah.
It's not getting the signal to start.
Okay.
So we ran a hot wire from the battery into and tapped it on the sending unit, and the starter spun. So the starter's working.
Yeah.
It was just this wire's going bad or something's up with it. Long story short, because I know you have a long story. After I worked on the steering, after I changed my oil, I was like, okay, let me figure out if I can trace this wire and see what happens with it. So I'm looking over the engine, I'm poking around, and I'm trying to find out where this wire goes. And it like dives behind the things that spit fuel into the cylinders.
Injectors?
The injectors. Thank you. It dives out back into the injectors, and I just can't trace it. Right.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And then I'm like looking around, and I'm like, hey, this one wire on the top of my engine's like two plugs. It should be a plug, but it's like somebody, it wasn't me, but probably one of the original owners of the vehicle, took the plug out, but still had the prongs.
Okay.
And they're like they're the female prongs, and they're like pushed onto the male prongs of the other side.
Okay.
And then they have butt connectors on the wires.
Okay.
So the plug went out and they just redid it or something. One of the butt connectors wires was broken.
Oh.
And I was like, huh. Okay.
All right.
And so I like took cut the butt connector out, and I cut the wires back, or the insulation off the wires, and I like looped them together, and Bobcat started right up. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I went and wiggled the other wire, and it was making like cracking noises. And I just pulled it really hard, and it slid right out of the butt connector. And I'm like, all right, I got to fix both of these wires real quick. And so I fixed the wires and just did some quick butt connecting work on it and plugged them back in, and I had no starting issues on the Rubicon.
Nice.
So
well, hopefully you found it then.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually find the right plug, and I'm going to wire it up correctly and put the right plug into place instead of these two wires. But,
nice.
But wanted to give that information because I've been having this starter problem for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it really came down to a bad sending wire, and that sending wire was not at the unit, but it was way up at the top of the engine. And it just goes to show how much stuff is involved in like these vehicles and these units, just to start your engine. Yep. So fingers crossed. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
hopefully cool.
We'll see. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
All right. Sorry. Continue on. By the way, I have an emblem in my window. I didn't change my oil since 2022.
Okay. Yeah. I should probably put down what year I changed my oil.
Yeah.
I think I only drive the 4Runner 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year, but the time that the engine is actually on is more than what mileage would typically dictate because we're just going slow on.
I haven't given you any oil change stickers?
Nope.
Oh, I have some.
Okay.
I'll give them to you.
Cool.
All right.
So I got the oil changed, and then from my Adopt a Trail meeting, I had an exhaust leak forming.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that it was at my the collector.
Sure.
And so because I have a flange there, and every once in a while those bolts like to come loose. So last time I was under and wrapped the exhaust, we welded the nuts onto the flange collector so that we can just bolt the bolts into everything, right? So I was like, they shouldn't be coming loose, but I'll check them. Checked everything. Everything was super tight. And I'm like, all right, where's this exhaust leak coming from then?
You got a hole in your muffler.
Got a hole somewhere. So while I had the engine on running and letting the new oil go through the block, I started running my hand up and down the exhaust there and found it right above my O2 sensor.
Oh.
There's a crack forming.
Which one? Upper or lower?
Upper.
Okay.
Yep. So I think mine only has one O2 sensor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's only upper. After the cat?
I do not have one after the cat. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, I have a whole crack forming above the O2 sensor in the exhaust. So I have to pull the exhaust now at the collector and weld up that hole real quick and then put it back on. So easy peasy. I'm not too concerned about it. If it was going to be at the collector and I needed to like redo a gasket or something, I would have done that because I've got wiring harness coming down near the collector. And I've noticed that if I start getting exhaust leaks there, the wiring gets really hot there and not good. So I was like, all good. I can let that one go and I'll just fix it later. Or I can do this trip with an exhaust leak. It'll just be loud. So that was leading into it.
Did you write yourself notes for this episode?
I did.
Wow. I'm impressed.
So that was kind of leading into the trip. I left Wednesday afternoon. My dad got there. We packed everything up and left within about an hour. We stopped at, where did we stop for dinner? It doesn't matter. We went up there, went to Loon Lake and camped in the chalet area, the big parking lot above the chalet.
Okay.
But behind the parking lot is this nice little dirt road you can go down. And there's like 4 or 5 little dispersed campsites back there.
Behind the chalet?
Behind the parking lot. So the trailer parking
drive
area
through the parking lot and out the back?
The big parking?
Yeah. Past the helipad.
Well, no, it's as you come in the parking lot, just go left.
Oh, okay.
It's back there.
Huh.
So there's a nice little road with like 4 or 5 little dispersed spots back there.
Okay.
And that
so it's
road,
in the parking lot though, not continuing up past the chalet.
Correct.
Oh,
yep.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yep. I didn't know. I had heard about those, but I'd never been back there.
Yeah.
And so I just drove up back there. I was like, this is actually a pretty cool little spot.
Yeah.
So we slept there. We got to watch the sunset over Loon Lake, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So chatted with my dad, got caught up with him about stuff and life.
How is he doing? I haven't seen him in a while.
He's good. Yeah. He's very active with his barbershop. He's a barbershop singer and quartet singer. And he,
really?
I
did not know any of this about
really?
Your dad.
Dude, he's a barbershop nut. So anyways, there's a group.
He doesn't cut hair.
No, it's a quartet singing.
Yeah. And
group.
He goes to barber shops to sing?
That's where it started at, but that's not what they do now.
Okay.
Yeah. Now they go to auditoriums and places that people go to have concerts.
Oh.
So, yeah, anyways, he's part of a quartet, but there's also a big, huge group in the United States called the Masters of Harmony. That's essentially a giant choir, but it's done barbershop style instead of choir music. And so he's like the accountant for the Masters of Harmony, pretty much.
Oh, dang.
Anyways, he's very involved with barbershop stuff. That's his hobby in retirement and off-roading, but barbershop is probably his main hobby. Off-roading is a secondary hobby.
And when you say barbershop stuff, you just mean the singing side of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Really?
No.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
It's interesting. I grew up with it my whole life. So I'm like, I don't like barbershop music. I don't want to hear barbershop music. But more power to him. It's his hobby and that's what he likes doing. So anyways, Where was I? I got off-tracked about.
You were talking about you were camping out at the spillway, and I asked how your dad was.
Gotcha.
And we went down that rabbit hole. So you're at the spillway camping in the dispersed campground.
Yep. And then, so Wednesday night was good. Thursday morning came around. We woke up early, about 6 a.m. To get everything packed and get down to the spillway. We wanted to be down at the spillway 6:30, 6:40.
Okay.
Right around there. Because we wanted to be on the trail at 7:30.
Wow. All right.
So we were supposed to be meeting everybody from our group, the 400 mini truck run around 7, driver meeting 7:15, on the trail 7:30. So we packed up. We just slept in a couple cots under the stars. Dude, the stars were awesome.
Yes.
Out at Loon Lake on Wednesday night.
There's a few
Very
places
impressive.
in this world where the stars are as great as they are out there.
Yeah. Which is interesting because the stars were not nearly as great in the Springs. From down in the Springs, it was like
There's too many people with too many lights.
maybe, and it just there's no lights out at Loon Lake really, so you just get the whole night sky. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways, Thursday morning, we woke up as we're packing. I noticed oil under the rig.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm like
under with the diff?
nope, it was under my transfer case in the skid plate area.
Oh.
So I'm like, I just replaced that seal, so I'm gonna crawl up under there real quick and look around. I'm like, son of a bitch, everything's spun around. There's gear oil all over the undercarriage of the vehicle. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, I put a new seal in. I was very careful about not damaging the seal. I checked the seal afterwards. I checked the fitment on the seal. Everything seemed good. And then I realized I did not RTV the splines. So I'm 90% certain that it's leaking through the splines.
Okay.
Because I did not RTV the splines when I put the flange, the drive shaft flange back in.
Right. And
So-
what about, did you put the nut on it?
Yep.
And did you torque down your drive shaft nuts?
I did. I torqued it to 140 foot-pounds.
Wow.
And then also stamped it.
Wow.
And
Good for
used
you.
Loctite because I'm like, I've had that happen before where that nut has come off on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not letting that happen again.
Nope.
So now I torque it down, Loctite it, and stamp it.
Well, what about the drive shaft bolts though?
The drive shaft bolts are Loctited now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dang. Look at you moving up
Yep.
in this world.
There's a common theme here of things that I need to Loctite, and this will come back to play later in the episode too.
All right. Ready.
So anyways, I'm like, all right, whatever. It's transfer case output seal. It's probably just the splines. I didn't RTV.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a very gear oily trip wherever I go. And there's going to be gear oil all over the bottom of the rig. When I get back, I'm going to have to clean it all up or whatever. Too late to do anything about it now. So we got down to the spillway. I made breakfast burritos for all the trail crew.
Nice.
So we had 15 trail crew. I made 33 burritos.
Okay.
And made coffee. Had coffee out on the kiosk concrete pad where I had parked waiting for everyone to get there. And ran into, we had a few listeners on the trip.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
get
that's
to
really
see all
fun.
those guys. Shy was there.
Was he?
So
On
a
your
long
trip?
time listener. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Shy was
Awesome.
there. Shy just put portals on his 5th gen 4Runner.
Ooh.
So
Awesome.
it was fun to watch his rig go through there. Other than that, I mean, I don't know if he's got to have lockers, but it was fun watching his 4Runner go through the trail, even though I only got to see a couple of times watching it go through because we were at just different points in the line. But anyways, it was fun to see Shy. Shy's been a really long time listener, and we had a few other listeners on the trip too. And so we all said hi in the morning. Our trail crew was Scott,
Cool.
Dan the Man.
Do I know Dan the man?
Yeah, Black Magic Dan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nick Arbuckle.
Yep.
Nick brought his son out.
Oh,
And then Scott had his daughter
okay.
out. Nick,
Did Dan drive his own 4Runner?
no,
Oh.
he drove his Jeep.
Oh.
His 4Runner just got a 4-wheel underground 3-link kit for the rear
Okay.
that they're working on installing right now.
Nice.
So they're thinking they're hoping to have it done for next year's Rubithon.
Same with Samantha.
Yeah, there you go. So anyways, they were there. Let's see, Nick DeLuca was there. He wasn't really trail crew though,
No.
but he was very much welcome, and he's always fun to have around.
Great guy. Yep.
He brought his 7-year-old Victoria.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So that little girl is so much energy.
I bet.
She's apparently does jujitsu 4 days a week too now.
Really?
And she loves running around and climbing. She's like a dolled up, I don't want to say dolled up, but a tomboy for sure. Like she's so much energy, but she's definitely a girl too.
Yeah.
Anyways, hilarious to have her around all weekend. Let's see, who else was there? Cena.
Okay.
Was
Cena was
there?
back another year.
He was back and
He was in his mini truck.
he brought a mini truck this
Yes,
time.
I'm sorry I didn't see that, Cena.
Yep. So he was there with a mini truck. Power Tank Steve was there with a good buddy of his named Ron, ran passenger with him.
Okay.
And then Power Tank Tyler was driving Ken. Do you know Power Tank Ken?
I probably do.
He's an older gentleman, retired, but still goes down to Power Tank every Friday to harass them.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He claims that he volunteers and helps and works, but I think he really just goes there to harass them all day on Fridays.
Yeah. I sold him a tailgate panel, and he is like, I'm an employee at Power Tank, and I wrote Steve, or I wrote Tyler, and I was like, do you know Ken? I mean, this is either Ken or Ron, and I'm mixing maybe. And he's like, he says he's an employee. He's like, well, he's just like a long time customer that always comes around.
That's probably him. Yeah, that sounds like him.
And I was like, all right, I'll give him a discount anyway.
So yeah, Ken had his 4Runner. Tyler drove it the whole time. Ken hiked the whole time.
Okay.
Which was fun because Ken went to vehicle and got to play around.
Cool.
Hang out with him for a bit. So quite a few other people on the run. We had 22 rigs in total on the run, which is
that's a big run.
So we had 22 signed up, 20 showed up.
Okay.
So still a pretty sizable run for a run to get people through to the springs in one day. Got on trail 7:30, no problem. Headed on out, had a great time. In Gatekeeper, we started having problems.
Oh man, really?
Yep. So
not even a mile in.
There was a couple of rigs that I was very concerned about. One was Shy's 4Runner, actually the 5th gen 4Runner.
Sure.
Turns out he didn't really have any issues the entire time. He did awesome. There was also a 3rd gen Tacoma on RCLT and 35s, but it didn't seem like he had any lift at all, which was really weird. It was kind of interesting to look at this Tacoma because you're like, he's got RCLT, he's got bigger tires, but it just looks like he has no ground clearance. What is going on here?
Right.
He struggled quite a bit. He had to go very slow, be very careful about all of his lines, and he got hung up quite a bit.
Sure. Too low.
Just too low. Not enough ground clearance for the Rubicon. But he had a great attitude the whole time.
Okay.
And had a great time the whole time. So,
good.
So he ended up getting hung up in Gatekeeper. And then somebody debeated a tire.
Oh, wow.
I forget which vehicle that was that debeated a tire in Gatekeeper. Steve, I think, was it Power Tank Steve had an issue in Gatekeeper? I find that hard to believe. That JL they have is really well built. I don't, but I, for some reason, want to say he had some issues in Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper was interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but you can't take the driver's side line anymore leading up to Gatekeeper.
Oh.
You used to be able, there's like a line of like 5 boulders.
5 rocks, yeah.
You can just go bloop, bloop on the driver's side and get right in. The last one was kicked over in the middle of the trail.
Ah.
So you couldn't do that anymore. And I told people leading up to it, just FYI, everybody, if you're familiar with Gatekeeper and you always go to on that driver's side line, can't do it anymore. You got to go far passenger.
Okay.
And like 3 or 4 people still tried to go driver and got high centered and hung up on that boulder.
When Richard and I were on our way out, there was a group of Toyotas going through Gatekeeper, but they were like they would like get through and pull off and then help their friend through and then pull off.
Oh yeah.
And we were stuck at that like wedge rock waiting for all these people.
Yeah.
Like we're like, are they pulling off or what are we doing? And one guy came back and he was kind of like, all right, our last buddy's coming up and we're just going to have him pull off. There are some other rigs down below, but I think they're going to wait for you. And we're like, okay, cool. So Richard, I led the whole way out until Beer Tree. And then I told Richard, because we were going to go back to his trailer and camper, and then I was going to air up there. I said, why don't you just lead the rest of the way? And I'll just follow you to your truck and camper. So we're sitting there waiting for that last person to come through and pull out of the way. And then we start going. And then a Toyota comes pulling up into Gatekeeper as we're driving through. And Richard's kind of like halfway through Gatekeeper. And this guy's on the flats right there at those 4 or 5 rocks. Right. And I turned to one of the guys we were talking to. I'm like, is this guy with you? And he's like, no, this is the guy we told to stop and wait for you guys. But apparently he didn't listen. I'm like, okay. And so he just stopped there and told Richard and me to do what you're calling the right line.
Oh, really?
So that's the way we wheeled out is down that. And he just sat there and we both got really close to his truck, like leaning in because we had to drive over all these boulders. I'm like, I really felt like rolling down my window and be like, you know, if you went back 5 feet or 10 feet, we would have been cleared of this by now. Or if you would have waited, we would have been totally cleared of this by now. But now because you're sitting here, you're making everything slower.
Yeah.
So, but I just kept my mouth shut and did the hard line, which is always fun. But
trail etiquette, people.
Yeah.
Trail etiquette.
Yep. Anyways, okay. So a bunch of people got hung up in Gatekeeper, a lot of problems. It was also pretty tore up.
It was, the trails really tore up right now.
Yeah.
Granted, we're early in the season before Jeepers Jamboree.
Right.
So usually the trail kind of gets, I don't want to say it gets paved, but all the holes get filled in for Jeepers Jamboree. So after Jeepers Jamboree is generally when the trail's at its easiest, and approaching Jeepers Jamboree about a month ahead, which is what we are right now. That's usually when the trail's its hardest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tore up, which I thought it was fun. I had a good time.
Yeah, I had a great time. There was many times I was wheeling through, down the trail and I was like, this is harder than I remember.
Yeah.
And I think that's primarily it. It's just, it was tore up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyways, the first half of the line got out to the bowl, and then we sat there at the top of the bowl for like half an hour, 40 minutes waiting for everybody to get through Gatekeeper.
I was talking down the trail there, and when we got to the base of Snail Hill, I was like, this is the hill we call Snail Hill. It's not technically named, but we're trying to tell everybody it's named Snail Hill so that it will be part of the history of the Rubicon for years to come. And every time I would stop talking, Derek would get on the mic. He's like, Jimmy, I really appreciate you sharing this information.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, he must be a listener of the podcast.
Nice.
Like I would tell like something, oh, this is called whale bones because of this over here. Blah, blah, blah.
So
Jimmy, that's
you were
so
doing
cool.
the
That's
tour
great.
guide
I was
thing
doing,
on the way.
Even though Brian was in the front and I kept going, I gave him like tour guide taco questions occasionally. And he's like, one of the times or after the first time, he was like, boy, did I miss those.
That's funny. I'd never even called him tour guide taco once this time. I'm a little disappointed now myself. Anyways, so
you waited for a bunch of people at Gatekeeper or at the bowl.
Got everybody out of Gatekeeper onto the bowl. And now like it's like 8:30, almost 9 o'clock by this time. So I'm like, man, if this is the pace we're going to be doing all day, we're going to be looking at like 6 to 7 o'clock getting into the springs.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, we started at, I've been up since 6.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, we'll just kind of deal with it and see where we get to. So continuing on right around, we got up Whale Bones just fine. At the top of Whale Bones was a broken high lift jack. So I took that and put it in my rig rather than leave the trail trash out there. Continued on down the trail. At some point between Whale Bones and Ellis Creek, Cena broke his front drive shaft.
Really?
Yeah. He was just like, I only have 2-wheel drive. I broke my drive shaft. And we're like, okay, well, do we need to like pull over and get you welded up? Do we need welders? Do we need to find a spare drive shaft? You know, is it pretzeled? You know, how did you break? And he goes, I'm fine. I'll just continue in 2-wheel drive. I was like, do you think you can make it to Ellis? Like there's a really nice group campsite at Ellis that we can pull everybody over, do welding, trail repair, whatever we need to. And he goes, I think I can make it. So they had to pull him a couple of spots. But otherwise he made it to Ellis and rear wheel drive.
Wow.
Which was impressive.
Yeah.
Pull over.
You just have to go faster.
Right. Just treat yourself like a side by side. So we got to Ellis. The back half of the group stopped at Ellis to repair Cena. The front half of the group pretty much just kept going.
Yeah.
All
the slow people.
Let's just go. Keep going, guys. Keep going. So really it was me, Nick, and Cena, and Ken helped out quite a bit too.
Okay.
And Cena took his drive shaft off so we can see what was going on. And it was weird because we're looking at it. We're like, that's a weird break. It wasn't pretzeled. It was like the drive shaft just separated.
Okay.
Like
the slip? The
splines just came out.
Yeah.
But then it looked like they were kind of back together, but they weren't engaging. And we're like, what is going on here? So we're like, we'll just pull the drive shaft so we can take a look at it and see what's going on here. I don't know who made that drive shaft. Somebody said that Cena gets his drive shafts made from South Bay Driveline.
Okay.
And I'm like, that is not the work of South Bay Driveline. I can't imagine they did this drive shaft. So I don't know where he got it from. There was no sticker on it. So I don't know who did it. But the drive shaft was essentially the axle side and your transfer case side, right? You got two sides of a drive shaft.
Uh-huh.
There was a third piece in the middle.
What?
That it seemed like this third piece was designed so that they could use a standard axle side, a standard transfer case side, and then cut to length the middle piece to figure out how long to make the drive shaft.
So it was like sleeved?
It was kind of like it was a sleeve because it was a wall of tube that went around the long slip splines. So the splines would go from the transfer case side into the axle side.
Yeah.
And then this tube centerpiece went over the splines. And it's almost like they made that piece
that piece longer to help hold the splines in, but it didn't have any splines for it to engage.
Correct.
So he completely separated.
So what this middle piece, it looks like it's supposed to be pressed into the transfer case side and then welded.
Yeah.
And it wasn't welded. It was just pressed.
Oh. Okay.
So when this piece came out, the rest of everything lost its support. The drive shaft lost its support and the splines came out and undone.
Got it.
So we're like, that's weird. So we cleaned it all off. I cleaned it all off and ground it down ready to weld. Nick pulled out his Carnage welder.
Perfect. Yep.
And welded it all back together.
Nice.
And we were like, well, that was actually a pretty easy fix.
Yeah.
We had all that done in like 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
So by the time the last of the front group has cleared Ellis Bridge.
Pretty much, yeah. So then the rest of the time, we were there for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours.
Oh.
Cena was having a hell of a time putting the drive shaft back and installing the drive shaft again.
You guys welded it too long?
No, it was the same length. It was the right length. He was just having trouble accessing the bolts on the transfer case side to get them tight.
Okay.
He was able to get them loose just fine.
Yeah.
But he couldn't get them tight. And he was having a lot of trouble getting the bolts tight on the transfer case side. So we were done with the work, not to say 30 minutes. And then we were there another hour and a half while Cena was fighting his bolts, drive shaft bolts. But what was really funny during this, and I really like this, was Nick. He's with Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria was just getting absolutely filthy, literally rolling in the dirt and like looked like a pig after they roll in the dirt for sun protection, right?
Wallows. Yeah.
And I mean, she had dirt covering her face, covering her hands. She was covered head to toe in her clothes. And we're just all looking at Nick like,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do about this, dude? He goes, well, I guess we're using like half of our wipes right here before we get in the car. But one thing that he does that I really like, I'm probably going to end up using, is every so often, 15 minutes or so, he would just yell out, hey, Vic, you still alive? And then you would hear Victoria from somewhere. Yeah. Okay. And then he'd continue doing whatever he's doing.
That was the check for earshot, right? Like if you're still in earshot, you're still good.
Yep.
If you're not in earshot, then
Dad's going to be very pissed.
And I've got to find you and I'm upset.
Yep. So, and she did. She stayed within earshot every time. Every time he asked that question, she immediately replied. And I was like, I like that system. Yeah, that's a good system.
I like that too.
So anyways, that was fun. She got absolutely filthy. We got back on the trail. By this time,
you just didn't tell her to just throw her in Ellis Creek real quick.
I did. I told him, I was like, Ellis is right there. You can just toss her in. You're fine.
Save your wipes, save your water.
So anyways, we get moving again. By this time, it's like 11 a.m.
Okay.
10:45, 11, I think, somewhere around there. And I'm like,
it had to be later than that.
I guess it probably was.
I mean, earlier than that.
No.
Because when I called you, it was like 10-ish and you said you were at the bowl or almost to the bowl.
Maybe that was,
it's Soup Bowl. That is.
Maybe we were 3 hours into the trip at that point. 4 hours? No. Yeah. I feel like it was later than that. I don't know. But anyways, I'm sitting there thinking when I was in here on Tuesday, it took me 15 minutes to get to this point.
Yeah.
And we're now
and I didn't even air down
3.5 hours into this trip. So I was like, man, we are making a slow pace. As we were going up Walker, there was a rig stopped just before Walker asking people for easy outs.
Okay.
We didn't have any. So we kept going. Steve, Power Tank Steve, had right-hand drill bits.
Oh.
Or the opposite direction drill bits.
Yeah.
So he stopped to help out the guy that needed the easy outs. And that took a very long time. Turns out this guy was with his buddy who had 2 more buddies that were stopped on Walker waiting for them. And these 4 rigs, according to Steve, they were supposed to be in our run.
Okay.
But like that would have put us at 24 vehicles and we only had 22 registered.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't think they were part of our run, but Steve thought they were part of our run for some reason.
Okay.
So Steve stuck around to help them out and make sure that they made it down the trail. So we sat at Soup Bowl for a long time waiting for Steve because we're like, we don't want to leave Steve.
Right.
So we sat around at Soup Bowl. And I think that's probably when I talked to you is when we were sitting at Soup Bowl or just before that something.
Yeah.
We ended up leaving Soup Bowl around 12:30. I think it was noon 30. And we're just like, man, we were hoping to be at Buck by now and having lunch at Buck right now at 12:30.
Yeah. And you're
We're
still ways away.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, let's just keep going. Let's see where we get to. We might just be camping at Buck tonight and going into Springs tomorrow. Luckily though, we had no other issues the rest of the day.
Except
no other issues.
none.
Yeah.
What about a link?
That was on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So no other issues getting down to the Springs. It was just kind of slow going.
Mm-hmm.
I think we pulled into the Springs about 5:30, sometime between 5:30 and 6.
Got it. Wow.
So 7:30 on trail
Jeez.
to 5:36 to get into the Springs. It was just a long day.
What is that? 10 hours?
10, 11, I don't know, somewhere around there. So long day, slow going. Throughout the day though, I had a couple things going on that I was like, they shouldn't be happening, but I just need to look at them when I get back home, I'm guessing. One was wheel bearing. My front wheel bearings were like just not squealing, but they're like squeaking, but they would never stop squeaking. And I'm like, these are only a year and a half, maybe 2-year-old Super Duty wheel bearings,
right?
Wheel unit bearings. They shouldn't be squeaking on a second gen 4Runner.
Right.
I don't put enough weight and stress on them to be squeaking like this.
Well, you put a lot of stress on them.
Not for a Super Duty unit bearing, though. A Super Duty unit bearing are designed for 8,000 pound trucks.
Yeah, but not 8,000 pound trucks driving up a wall.
Maybe.
Or slamming down on something.
I don't know. Maybe I beg to differ a little bit. I don't know. WFO uses takeoff unit bearings in their used race trucks. Those are the unit bearings they take off of factory Super Duties and put them in their race trucks.
Yeah.
That's what they use. So I'm like, it should last longer than 2 years, especially I didn't do much wheeling last year.
I agree they should last longer, but I'm just saying I think you're putting more stress through them than you realize.
Probably, but if a Toyota wheel bearings can handle that stress,
yes,
I would imagine Super Duty unit bearings
can handle
more.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So anyways, one thing that a listener did do, I talked about this before. I was like, I wish I could find a way to grease my unit bearings. They're a sealed unit bearing. You can't really grease them or rebuild them.
Yeah.
However, Barnes 4-wheel drive makes a Zerk fitting cover for the tone ring sensor port.
Oh.
So if you're not using tone rings, the tone rings in your unit bearings, you're not using the sensors for anything, you can take the sensor port, which is just capped off on mine, and put on the Zerk fitting, and now you can pump grease into your unit bearing.
Okay.
So I need to do that. I didn't do that before I left. I have the Zerk fitting caps. I just didn't do it. So I'm thinking to myself, I've done enough water crossings now, and I did some snow, a little bit of snow this year. Maybe I just got in and washed out some of the unit bearing grease. I should re-grease it. So it's just in my head now. I need to re-grease it when I get home, see if the squeaking goes away.
Okay.
The other thing that was going on was my tire was stuffing and rubbing. Whenever I stuffed my front passenger tire, it was rubbing on my bumper, my front bumper.
Really?
Yeah. Never done that before with the new suspension. Everything's been clearanced perfectly. I've never rubbed with the bumps and limits and everything set up, the cutting that happened, the re-welding the bumper, etc.
Well, you did change the springs.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I changed the springs. I've got a different spring rate in there now. Maybe that was enough to make things stuff and start hitting more. But if you think about that, which I didn't at the time, but if you think about that, the bump stop should still be stopping things.
Yes.
Like you shouldn't
if
be
that's set up properly. Yes.
Correct. If it's set up properly. Right. And I've hit the front axle and stuffed it really good quite a few times. I've never rubbed. But
the rubbing wasn't, well, was it coming from articulating or like hitting something at speed, fast and straight?
Stuffing and articulating. Okay. So, which I've done. I mean, I hit some pretty big whoops in King of the Hammers.
Yeah.
And I've done plenty of rock crawling. I've stuffed that side plenty of times in articulation, never had it rub. So that means the bump stop in theory should be working properly and set up properly, or
your bumper's moved,
or my bumper moved. That could be an option, I guess. I didn't think about that one. But I'm just thinking it's due to the spring. Okay. Different spring. I just changed that before this trip.
Yeah.
So maybe different spring rate is now I got to redo clearances and reconfigure bump stops, etc. So I'm like, all right, another thing, mental note, keep track of for when I get back home. So that was kind of the two things I was thinking about on Thursday.
Right.
So keep those in mind. Those are important.
Okay.
Friday. Was really awesome. Super relaxing day. We just hang out in the springs. We go for hikes. We do whatever we want. We don't have anything to do Friday. So we just hang out and relax all day. Usually it's warm. During Rubithon, the weather is kind of warm. So we go hang out in rivers. We go swimming. We go, just whatever. This year was unusually hot in my opinion.
It was very warm.
It was low 80s, I would guess, upper 70s, low 80s.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was in the 70s. I bet it was
mainly in the 80s.
Yeah, low mid 80s.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And at 6,500 foot elevation.
Well, it was like 100 degrees in Sac.
Oh, really? I didn't even look at Sacramento weather.
It was like 99 to 100 degrees here in Sac.
Okay, so if it's 100 degrees in Sac and you get 3 degrees cooler per 1,000 foot of elevation, you've got 6,500 foot of elevation change. So you've got 18, 20 degrees. So about 80 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to say it's on average 80 degrees at 6,500 feet elevation. No clouds in the sky at all. Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful up there. But pasty white boy over here burns in those conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to go on the Stone Cabin hike.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which is great. I've done that a lot of times. It's a really fun hike. It's fun to take people out and just watch them go, holy crap. Like there's a
dwelling here.
There's a dwelling. Like most people you tell them about a stone cabin, they think it's like just the foundation or just like 2 feet of the walls left. Not a full on stone cabin is still here.
Yeah. A few walls made out of stone built back into the rocks with a metal roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So anyways, we took him over to see that. And then Power Tank Steve showed me a new swimming hole that I've never known about.
Oh.
And it is awesome. There's 2 waterfalls to it, with a pool, between the 2 waterfalls and a pool after the waterfall.
Nice.
And so we jumped in freezing cold.
Yeah.
Not literally freezing, but I would say mid to high 40s temperature on the water, which was awesome with how much warmer it was out there.
Yeah.
I put on sunscreen before I jumped in. I was red when I came out. I put on more sunscreen for the hike back. And then when we got back, we had lunch. And then we went to go hang out in the river down by the slabs.
Okay.
And so I put on more sunscreen when we got down there. Got in the river, hung out, had some beers in that river, just hanging out, talking to the guys. And then pretty soon the guy's like, dude, you're getting red. I'm like, shit, man, I put on sunscreen 3 times already.
Yeah.
So I got out and I put on sunscreen again. So I put on sunscreen 4 times.
In a day.
In one day. and I still just got burnt. Man. Like, and it's funny because like
keep getting into the water.
It washes off. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, so I got burned on Friday. It was uncomfortable sleeping the rest of the trip. Uncomfortable sitting in a car, bouncing around the rest of the trip. Uncomfortable back at home, but I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I put on sunscreen 4 times.
You need an umbrella.
I need an umbrella, or I need a pasty white boy swim shirt or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that too.
So anyways, Friday night was the live band.
Oh,
so
cool.
Diva Rocks, which is the band that comes out to Sierra Trek every year. They came down and set up in the Springs.
Cool.
They were awesome as always. They do a really good job with some awesome, amazing 70s and 80s cover band music. And then while that was going on, the kids had their movie night.
Yeah.
Which they played Minecraft.
Yep. I knew that because I think Brian set it up.
Yep. Brian was in charge of it. Tour guide Taco. And so for the rest of the trip, there was an ongoing joke about my vehicle. The 4Runner and the Minecraft.
Oh, Tyler's a creeper.
Yep. And so now the 4Runner is called the Creeper Crawler. Anyways, it was fun.
Good job, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. And so it was a great trip on Friday. Good day on Friday. Awesome, relaxing day. Scott brought a Howl Industries propane fire pit.
I've never seen it.
Never
heard of it.
Howl, they're kind of a new brand.
Okay.
And what he does that's really cool is that a lot of times propane fire pits, they just don't put out heat.
Yeah.
Propane just doesn't put out heat like burning wood does, right?
Right.
So what he does, he builds his fire pits with thermal mass in mind. And he finds ways to incorporate more metal into his fire pits so that all the metal heats up.
Okay.
And you get infrared radiation.
Sure. But how heavy is that fire pit then?
They're heavy.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're heavy.
So you might as well just find rocks and actually put the real rocks on top.
Right. But this fire pit was working pretty well. I was actually impressed with how much heat it was putting out. It had like an afterburner mode. So you could have the normal fire grill thing going. And then there was another one that like had like propulsion to it. Like you lit it. It sounds like a jet engine. So it had like a 2-stage burning system on it.
Okay.
Really stout and everything. And we're talking about this and we're like, Scott, this is actually pretty nice. And it was also really nice because they didn't want people to have fires.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have a propane fire so that people would stay up at night, hang out and chat. And, we can catch up because we haven't seen each other in a year. This is like the one time everyone gets together every year.
Right.
And I haven't seen them for 2 years.
Right.
So we're kind of talking about, we're like, this is actually pretty cool. Where'd you get this, Scott? And he goes, I got it on a Black Friday sale from Howl Industries. And we're like, awesome. How much was it? He goes, $1,000. And my heart sank. Nick DeLuca, our gladiator on 29, he passed out.
Yeah.
He was like, what?
I just see him.
And so we're all sitting there like, well, thank you, Scott. A, for spending the money, but B, for bringing the fire so that we all stayed up at night and chatted. Because they had it, I guess they didn't do a fire last year, or one of the years they didn't have a fire and like everyone just goes to bed.
Okay.
So,
you need like 4 or 5 fire pits,
right?
To like take up that space.
Yeah. So Scott was like, I don't care. This $1,000 I spent is well worth what's happening right now for me. I was like, that's a good way of thinking about it.
Absolutely.
So, that was Friday night. Saturday was Rubithon day, I guess, where there's activities in the Springs. I went and set up. That was vendor day as well.
Yep.
I set up on the concrete pad in front of the stage. After a while, Ben from Descent set up the GX next to me. So it was fun being up there, getting to upstage the GX. Which is a very nice build.
It was extremely nice. Yeah.
Talking with Ben, though, he's running the same Dakota lithium battery that I'm running.
Oh.
In the GX.
Okay.
So that was fun. We were comparing notes about that and how it all works and how it's been working for both of us. So that was fun. Other than that, Saturday was the RC competition.
Yep.
A lot of fun for the kids. Victoria won her class.
Oh, good.
Yep. Which is funny because Nick is like
the dirty class.
Yeah. The dirty, filthy 7-year-old class. Which is funny because Nick was like, she has a $1,200 car. She better win.
Yeah.
And so that's when the comment came out of, hold on, how much you spend on that car? Wouldn't you rather have a propane fire pit?
Yeah.
So anyways, then the running joke back and forth was $1,200 for an RC car or $1,200 for a propane fire pit.
Yeah.
Both of those items brought joy and excitement to the people using them.
There
so
you go.
the moral of the story to both those is money does buy happiness, ladies and gentlemen.
True, it does.
So anyways, Saturday was a lot of fun. We got to the raffle at night and the evening, and the dinner. The dinner was steak and chicken barbecued.
Nice.
Awesome dinner. I found a little garter snake in the lawn while we were setting up our chairs to get ready for the raffle, and took the garter snake over and scared all the girls at the registration and raffle booth.
Oh, nice.
That was fun. Sue and Chai Bun were there for Bun Welder.
Yeah, good to hear that they're out and about.
Yeah, super cool to see them out and about. And
go for it.
Sue is in remission.
Yes.
Which
I know. That's so amazing.
So incredible. When she first got the diagnostics and prognosis of her cancer.
Stage 4 cancer.
Stage 4, max of 2 months to live. And we're now, 2.5 years
later?
3
and
years
she's in
later.
remission.
And she's in remission.
Yes.
So freaking cool.
So rad. So good.
And two of the, like we've said it multiple times on the podcast, two of the nicest people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
So they were out there. I got to catch up with them for a little bit. They are playing around with lithium batteries for running the bun welders off of.
Okay.
So they had Sue's truck out there, her crawler, with a big ass 24 volt, 100 amp hour lithium battery. And I got to play with it with their welder.
Yeah.
It burns hot.
I'm sure it does.
And it continues burning hot for a very long time because of how BMS systems work in lithium batteries.
Yeah.
That they give you the full voltage of the battery until the battery's dead.
Right.
Whereas lead acid or AGM batteries or other, they just fade over time as the voltage drops, right?
Yep.
And so I was like, yeah, lithium's the way to go, I think, for welding batteries.
Does it last as long though?
Yeah, they said it. I mean, that one's 100 amp hour, 24 volt. It's a massive battery. Yeah. He said it lasts about the same amount as four like red tops or yellow tops, AGMs.
Dang.
I was like, that's crazy. So anyways, be on the lookout, everybody. They said they're thinking about starting to sell lithium batteries on the Bun Trail website.
Wow.
To work with their welders.
Okay.
So that's coming. Also, since I gave them a shout out, I have to give Joe, our buddy at Carnage Welder, a shout out. He's also looking to do some fun things with batteries. And that's all I'm going to say for now. So there's that. There's the plug for welders. So Saturday was awesome. Raffle was great as always. It was a little slow going. They didn't have the camaraderie and the humor that normally is in the raffles, right? It just like the whole feeling of the raffle was just really like dead and morose almost. It was really weird compared to most. I don't know. I think it had to do, the guy that did it was awesome. Patrick, good dude. I think he just wasn't as experienced in riling up crowds
as Tony
or Ross.
Yeah.
Like both Tony and Ross, they know how to rile up crowds, right?
Okay.
They have a lot of years of doing it.
Yeah.
So I think Patrick, the guy that did it, he just wasn't as experienced. And the crowd was just like you could just hear sighs. Like the ongoing thing that was keeping everybody entertained was there was a hound up near the front of the crowd that every once in a while would just go, boo, boo. And so like half the crowd would just repeat after the dog and start mimicking the dog every time the dog barked, which that was the entertaining part of it.
That's funny. So was there a bar open this year?
There was a bar on Friday night. Thank you. And they did unlimited drinks. All you can drink, $20.
Oh,
yep.
Good thing I didn't show up.
Yeah.
I would have been sore with gout by now.
You would have been with Steve Saturday morning. Steve had massive calf cramps Saturday morning. He couldn't get out of bed. Like I got out of bed and I'm walking down to our kitchen area.
Yeah.
And I just hear this, and I'm like, is somebody having a hard time in the shitter? What is going on? I'm like,
yeah.
So then I'm like, it doesn't sound like it's coming from our camp. I'm like, all right, so whatever. I kind of go and I walk into our kitchen area and sure enough, it's from our camp. And I'm like, is somebody like dying? What's going on? And Ken goes, Steve had a little bit too much to drink last night and he can't walk now. And I'm like, oh God.
So Steve,
Power Tank Steve knows how to party.
Yes, he does.
knows
we
how
already
to shut
knew
down
that.
a bar. Yeah. So anyways, a lot of people really enjoyed the unlimited drinks, $20, all you can drink bar.
Yeah.
I didn't go down. I ended up staying up and hanging out with the rest of our group that hung out up there and got to catch up with them. So
Cool.
it was a lot of fun.
Okay.
But there was some people that were suffering Saturday for sure.
I would have been one of them.
Yeah. Anyways, Saturday went through, good stuff. Sunday, we're leaving the trail, and got up Cadillac just fine. I had gone up and down Cadillac, I think more times at the 4Runner right now than I've been through the trail.
Yeah.
With the axle and suspension the way it is, right? So I know where my lines are on Cadillac right now. But the Tahoe high-lows were out there spotting people up and down up Cadillac to help keep traffic moving. And so every obstacle I came up on, pretty much the spotters were like, yeah, you're right on. Yep. Just kind of nodding as I'm coming up.
Yeah.
This one guy was like, no, you're going the wrong turn passenger. I'm like, I'm going to stay driver.
Yeah.
I know where I can go. I know where my rig likes to be on this hill. And he's like, you're going, and like starts going, stop. So I stop. And he's like, back up. And I'm like, did I run over something? He goes, no, you're on the wrong line. And I was like, I'm good. And I kept going forwards again. He was like, what are you doing? Just kept like yelling. And I just rolled up the window and kept driving. I was like, I didn't slip a tire. I made it past you just fine. I don't know why you're freaking out, dude.
Yeah.
But that was really the only hang up for me on Cadillac. Everybody else
would assume that somebody with your rig, they would just be like, well, let's see what he does.
Everybody else did.
Yeah.
Everybody else was just kind of like, all right, I'll just help you if you ask for it. And just kind of stood back and just kept nodding and was like, yeah, give me a thumbs up. Like,
yep, good job.
Everybody else did.
Except for this one guy.
Except for this one dude was freaking out. I was like, I think he's new to spotting. This might be one of his first year or something.
Maybe.
But anyways, so sorry to that guy. If you listen to the podcast, I definitely just drove past you and didn't have a care in the world about what you had to say. Sorry. Everybody else made it up just fine. There were no issues on Cadillac whatsoever. Having the Tahoe high-lows there is a massive value for the event and getting people up and out Cadillac in a timely fashion.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So huge thank you to the Tahoe high-lows.
The whole event is leaving more or less at that day.
Yeah.
And so there's always a backup on Cadillac. It's the only way. There's only one vehicle at a time. If anybody stops, then the whole line stops.
Yep.
So yeah, to keep that line moving is the best thing and the easiest way to get everybody out in a timely manner. Yep. So yeah, thank you guys for helping out with that.
Yep. It's very cool. So, they were there. They did awesome as always. We got up to observation. The wagon run was ahead of us at observation. So we kind of held back for a second while they were getting their pictures. And then we started sitting there thinking, we should probably get ahead of them.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was like, why were you guys waiting?
Exactly. So we kind of like all looked at each other and I walked over to Steve. I was like, hey, you want to get moving and get ahead of these guys? And he was like, yes. I was like, okay, cool. Went over and I talked to Nick. I was like, hey, Nick, do you want to get moving, get ahead of these guys? He goes, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. So we all kind of like looked at each other and gave each other, the nod, the wink, nod, nod, did the helicopter move in the air and, okay, let's go. So we didn't even take pictures or anything. We just got back in our rigs and took off. While driving out, we got past Potato Patch. There was a small hold-up line at Potato Patch, but for the most part, everything was moving really smooth on the way out. Around McKinney Lake.
Okay.
I was coming through at a pretty good speed, 20, 25 miles an hour. And I heard a pop, and then the passenger side of the vehicle jumped up in the air. And then it came down, another pop, and the suspension settled about 6-7 inches lower than what it should be.
Okay.
And so I immediately stopped. Nick was right behind me. Nick, I got to stop and look at something. There's definitely something not good just happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but we're stopping. So he stops behind me. I'm stopped. I get out and I'm kind of looking around the rig and Nick is walking up and he picks up this pipe on the ground and he goes, I don't know what happened, but you just drove over this pipe and there's a big gouge in the ground where the pipe was. And I'm looking at it. I was like, that looks like my lower link. And I look over at the rig and I just have 2 joints hanging from the shaft, hanging from the brackets in my where my lower link should be.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's not a pipe, Nick. That's my lower link. Thanks for finding that. And he goes, oh, cool. And he's looking at it. He goes, and we start looking over. We're like, well, I think we just like thread it back in and be good, right?
Yeah.
No. The threads were fucked.
Did they rip out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was only like the last 2 to 3 threads.
Yeah. Okay.
So what had happened
all week
long, my link was getting longer and longer and longer until it finally unthreaded from the front and pogoed the rig. And when it pogoed the rig, that's when it ripped the threads out of the back of the last 2 to 3 threads on the joint.
Got it.
And in the bung. So we're looking at the front. We're like, the front actually looks decent. Like we might be able to thread that back in. The back looks like the last 2 to 3, maybe 4 threads are just gone. I mean, they're fucked. They're gone. Yeah. So we're like, all right, how can we fix this? Let's see. Can we cut the joint short and thread it back in? It looked like the threads that ended up pogoing weren't too bad.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and, cut the very tip of it off.
Were the threads damaged more on the link or on the joint?
On the front, it was definitely the link. The joint actually looked pretty good.
Okay.
But the link was definitely messed up in the bung from where it pogoed into the ground, right? But it only looked like the first couple threads were bad. So we're like, well, let's just pull out the grinder and cut the first 2 to 3 threads off of the bung and see if we can thread this back onto the front joint.
Okay.
And we got it about 4 threads onto the front joint before it was just completely seized and cross-threaded. So we're like, well, we can't get that off now.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get. And the other thing we found out is when Ori put together the suspension and put everything together, he made it so that you have to remove the coilover in order to remove the lower link, because the bolt that holds the joint in on the axle is held in place. You can't get it out with the coilover in. So the coilover, the springs for the coilover is blocking the bolt hole for that bracket.
Okay.
So we had to remove the coilover.
Wow.
Which meant drooping the axle all the way down.
Yeah.
And lifting the vehicle body and chassis all the way up so that we could get the axle all the way down, and so that there's not enough stress to bind the bolt on the coilover.
Right.
Pulled that out, swung the coilover out, pulled the bolt out of the joint, pulled the whole joint and link off. And then we completely ground down all the threads on the rear joint, and made a smooth shaft essentially.
Right.
And shoved that into the threaded bung. And it was a nice, I was actually impressed with my grinding skills for that. We got it as a nice press fit. We had to hammer it in.
Okay. Yeah.
And then once we had that in, we just welded everything up.
Sure.
So, we welded the nuts to the bung.
Yeah.
And the nuts were still on both the joints. So we're able to move those up and down the joint. And then, so we welded the nuts to the bungs and then the nuts to the joints.
Got it.
And created one solid link, one bar. And we got it as short as we could, which ended up being within half an inch of the length of the good link on the other side.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah,
I was
half an inch long.
Half an inch longer than the what it should be.
Yeah.
So I was like, that should be good enough to drive home.
Yeah.
Half an inch won't be that big of an issue driving down the road.
I don't know why it would. Yeah.
Because the only thing is that, if it's too far forward, it pushes the axle and then you're steering left.
Well, you're steering. Yeah. It's not going to be the best for the tires, but it will get you home.
Yeah. So, and I started thinking about that as we were measuring the link out, and that realizing that we needed to get it shorter and shorter and shorter. And trying to figure out ways to do that, because otherwise the axle is pushed forward
and maybe hitting your bumper
and maybe hitting my bumper when I'm stuffing the tire.
I caught on to that later.
Yeah. So anyways, I made that realization. I was sitting there and I was like, son of a bitch, my axle was 4 or 5 inches forward.
And so is that what, like, you weren't hitting your bump stop?
Correct. The bump stop was hitting the limit strap, actually.
Oh, interesting.
It was no longer hitting the strike pad. It was hitting my limit strap. So my limit strap is torn on the bottom now too.
Oh, I think I have another one.
I think it'll hold. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to order another limit strap and then just throw it in my spares.
Yeah.
And when this one gives, then I'll swap it out. They're easy to swap out, quick, simple. So, but anyways, I was starting thinking about, I was like, son of a bitch. That's why my axle was hitting my bumper.
Makes sense.
Well, because my axle was 4 to 5 inches forward of where it should have been.
Yep. Wow.
So, and that's probably also why my wheel bearings were squeaking so much, because it was driving a cockeyed axle.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
And wheeling a cockeyed axle. So I didn't notice it enough in steering because I'm aired down. I'm doing low, so it can just
Going
push through
slow.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, just welded up at both ends, made one solid link. And we were able to get it driving again. And so I will say Carnage welder for the win.
Yeah.
I have the Premier, right? And I'm a big proponent of the Premier, but there's a lot to be valued there in the convenience of just pulling out a case.
Yeah.
And having everything you need to weld right there in that case.
Pretty much. Yes.
And you can take it anywhere. You don't have to have your vehicle running. You don't have to train people on operating the RPMs of the vehicle while you're welding.
Sure.
And so anyways, it was, there's still, I think, value to stick welding and the ability to stick weld. You can have multiple processes on a trail. Sometimes you can get a stick into places you can't really get a MIG gun. But for all the welding, I mean, we only welded twice, but for both the welding projects we did, the Carnage welder was by far, I think, the top choice.
Okay.
For those projects, which I would argue are a lot of the projects you see on the Rubicon or rock crawling.
Yeah.
So
I understand that. I just think the big fear of a Carnage welder is running out of power.
That is a fear. I mean, you can recharge it while you're driving,
Mm-hmm.
and it has 15 minutes of runtime to it. And so we were able to do
all the welding
we needed.
Yeah.
Didn't need it any more than that.
And there's a way to hook it up to a battery and batteries, right?
Yep. You can run it off batteries if you need to.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not an end all game. If you run out of the battery, you can still connect it to batteries.
Yep.
And run it similar to a bun trail welder.
Yep.
Yeah.
And talking a little bit with Joe after this trip, because I ended up ordering a Carnage welder.
Okay.
After this trip.
Yeah. Smart.
Talked with Joe a little bit, and he's got some big things he's been R&D'ing.
Cool.
A couple of 2 big iterations.
Okay.
That he's been R&D'ing, and he said he'd keep me in the loop for when he gets them all squared away.
Exciting news.
Yeah. The link right now has a Carnage fixed my shit sticker on it.
Yes, it does.
And I drove it to work today. Drives it has a very ever so slight pull to the left.
Okay.
But it's really like, you can't tell if you're holding the steering wheel.
Wow.
It's only if you let go of the steering wheel, it'll just start slowly drifting. It might change a lane in like half a mile.
Okay.
So really not bad.
It's almost better than my Tacoma.
Right. I was like, I've definitely had times when my steering was worse than this.
Right.
So I talked to Brian at 4 Wheel Underground. I said, hey, buddy, I need some more parts.
Yep.
I destroyed a link and some joints.
Yeah.
He goes, how'd you destroy the joints? And I was like, by destroying the link. We had to weld everything together. So anyways, I've got some parts on the way from Brian. I have some parts on the way from Carnage.
Did you get the aluminum ones?
No, I thought about it. And I was so close to being just like, hey, I'm going to upgrade to aluminum lower links now. But then I realized if I did that, I would not be able to weld repairs if I need to on the trail. So I think I'm going to stick with steel. I am going to stick with steel. That's just my personal preference, because I'm going to be carrying 2 welders, and it would suck to have something break and not be able to fix it with the welders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my personal choice.
Okay.
I don't know. I would probably like the aluminum link wouldn't have saved me in this situation.
No.
This situation was just neglect and me not walking around the rig on a daily basis, right?
Pretty much.
While wheeling. So that's just on me. I need to Loctite
Yeah.
my jam nuts on my links here now. So that's on my to-do list.
Okay. We're going to run down your to-do list now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to run down my to-do list of what I need to do the Forerunner now before the next trip. My lower link needs to get redone.
Okay.
So Brian does have longer shaft bungs.
Oh.
So I'm getting some of those.
Okay.
To put into
Good.
the DOM for my lower link, as well as 2 new joints from Brian's new joints. So that'll be cool. I need to get a new what's called a bump stop flapper, which is the rubber tip to a bump stop that hits the strike pad.
Yeah.
Because I was hitting my
limiting strap
and the bracket there that the straps around, right? I'm destroyed the flapper. It's not there anymore.
Right.
And now the cup, the little aluminum cup that the flapper sits in on the bottom of the bump stop is also destroyed.
Oh.
So I have to get that whole house assembly.
Yeah.
The cup and the flapper and everything. It's $45, something like that from Radflow.
Okay.
But Radflow has upgraded ones now from the ones I originally got on my bumps. So I'm getting 4 new ones and I'm going to swap all of them.
Okay. I was going to say, what about Perry Parts, which makes the 3D printed bump stops, or Duro Bumps that also makes replacement parts for those.
Do they? I didn't know that.
That make that silence the impact of them colliding.
I didn't think about that. Radflow has not told me the part numbers yet that I need to order, so maybe I'll reach out to Duro Bumps.
Yeah.
And talk to him about those.
Yeah, because that's what he's talked about, is that the number one gripe about bump stops is that they're loud when they collide. And so they made
I didn't realize they made a tip for them. I thought that they just replaced the entire bump stop. And I'm like, I don't want to get on my hydraulic bumps.
I believe it's just a tip.
Okay.
Just the tip, Tyler.
That's my favorite saying. So anyways, I got that. I have my steering box is leaking, the sector shaft.
Okay.
My rear output seal on the T-case. I need to RTV the splines and see if that stops the leaking from happening. If it doesn't, then I fucked up the seal putting it in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
right.
I've redone that multiple times in the past. Never had issues afterwards. So hoping it's just RTV. My wheel bearings. I need to put the Zerk fitting cap on and grease them.
Yep.
The exhaust leaks. I need to pull the exhaust from the collector back, weld up the leak. My front pinion is leaking.
Oh.
Which is going to be a pain in the ass to do.
Yeah.
Because if you pull the pinion nut off, in order to put the pinion nut back on, you have to get the right rotational drag on the pinion, right?
Okay.
If you go too loose or too tight, if you go too loose, your pinion has too much slop on the ring gear.
Yep.
If you go too tight, you crush the crush sleeve more.
Yep.
And then you're changing your wear pattern and how the pinion interacts with the ring gear.
Yeah.
So that I have to be very careful with.
Did they put a crush sleeve in it when you had it done? Not a solid spacer?
Nope.
Okay.
As far as I know, and I asked, people don't have solid spacers yet for the 10.5 inch third members.
Bummer.
One downside to the 10.5 tundras. So anyways, I got to redo that seal. And I think that's going to be the biggest project. And then
JB weld it.
I should, right? Just JB weld the whole fucking thing. And then my brakes are a little squishy. They've been squishy for a while, but it started doing the thing where I would have to pump the pedal to build pressure.
Mine was doing the same thing.
Yeah. So that when you pump the pedal to build pressure, that means your vacuum is going out? Your vacuum booster? There's a rip in the vacuum booster?
There's a leak. You have a vacuum leak somewhere.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually what it means.
Okay. So that's kind of where I think I need to redo my booster.
Your brake booster could be going out, or you could just have had a vacuum line fall off.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need to look at that and dig into that. The brakes still work, but like the longer and the day they get, the more I have to put the pedal to the floor to really get them to engage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to get that fixed before the next trip. Yeah, that's my damage report. So not too many big things. The lower link is obviously a big thing that has to get fixed.
Yeah.
The other stuff is more kind of just small, meticulous things
Sure.
that I got to do. So
Not terrible.
yeah.
A lot of, I would make sure that those your wheel bearings or your unit bearings aren't squeaky anymore. Are they still squeaking down the road now?
No, at higher speed, they're not squeaking, and they stopped squeaking as much. Like before we fixed the link, they were squeaking like just constantly.
Yeah.
Squeak, 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 squeak. Now it's happening way less often. It's not a constant thing. So I really do think that they were squeaking so much because the axle was out of cockeyed position trying to drive.
Sure.
And I think the rest of it is going to be able to be fixed by getting some grease in there.
Okay.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't necessarily know my damage report, but I did want to report that I did notice that I have a lot of leaking coming from the top of my T cases. So I need to go in there and clean that up and figure that out. Maybe I'll talk to Dave and see what he did for yours and do that for mine or something. But that's on my to-do list. My brakes are also been squishy, so that wasn't a benefit. And I still have to figure out my steering. So, yeah. All a bummer, but it sounds like you had a great time.
It was an awesome trip.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. Loved every second of it. The Starlink came in clutch. I was able to call the wife on a video call, with the wife and the kid each night.
You were able to call the podcast and we could record something small for Monday. So that was fun.
Yep. The Mini did awesome. So nothing much else really to report.
Sweet. Well, that's awesome. Well, if you have any questions for Tyler or any fun comments about how ridiculous and silly he is, you can always call in at 916-345-4744 and be a part of our snail mail episodes where we listen to your voicemails on air or on the podcast and we respond to them. And most of the time we poke a lot of fun at you guys. So this is a good chance for you to call in and poke fun at Tyler, which is always a good time. You can also get a hold of us on Instagram. SnailTrail4x4 is what I watch over, and 4x4 Toyota Tyler is what Tyler checks out. Yep.
All good stuff. Jimmy Jet.
Yeah.
Final words to close up the episode.
I just want to say, it's actually quite important to join or attend some of these events. As much as I'm a person that hates going to these events because I like wheeling on the trails when nobody else is really out there and I don't want to be in these crowds, it actually is a benefit to go to the events and put money there towards the event because those money usually go to good causes.
Yep. Yeah, the TLCA definitely donates quite a bit of money to different off-road organizations as well. So support your events.
Yep.
And with that, my friends, keep crawling.
I got one for you.
Okay.
Why wasn't the woman, could be a man, but the person. So why wasn't the person happy with the Velcro they bought?
I don't know.
Because they thought it was a total ripoff.
Yeah.
Which Velcro is. So I don't know why they're unhappy about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's they shouldn't be shopping anymore.
Sounds like they did bad marketing.
Yeah.
Advertising.
Yeah.
Person didn't know what they were buying.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a joke there about a ripoff and being a sexual innuendo. Anyways,
you try to find that in every joke I tell.
I'll try and find that one. It's going to come to me halfway through the recording today.
Yeah.